Hey there, welcome back to the city building project. You know, I like to think of myself as a pretty ambitious person, especially where this project is concerned because, well, I like forging ahead, I like trying new things whenever possible. However, I thought it might be nice this episode to kind of backtrack a little bit because I want to finish this damn hill. Sunshine Manor is not what I said I was going to build. Nope. It's a fairly standard story right now. Got distracted again, and yes, now we've got this new housing area built. Haven't worked on the cliff at all, but you know, such is the way of this series. Sometimes things happen, and in this case, this happened. Anyways, my favorite part about it is back here. I made a little vineyard. I thought it was a neat place to put something. My idea of this building is that it's sort of like a safe haven home, I guess, although everything in the city is a safe haven, in a way. In that it's like this old person, I don't know how to describe it, like an orphanage, but happy? I don't know, I'm at a loss for words. As soon as I press record, everything just gone, and I have to brain all over again, which, as you know, key and speaking and key and brain are not activities that usually coincide. I think what I meant to say is that this is sort of like a homely building that you might see the protagonist of a Ghibli movie moving into or living in during their stay at whatever mystical town they're staying at. I don't know. So I wanted to give it this warm, sort of homely feeling, and that's why there are so many plants. And, of course, the sun, and the name, Sunshine Manor, comes from that sort of idea as well. And so, yeah, I want it to be sort of a focal point of this little area. Now, as you can see, I'm building houses here. These houses are supposed to be similar styles to those houses over there. However, they are going to be completely unique in shape. So as you can see, this one is quite a lot smaller than the rest of the houses, and all the roofs point the same way. It's not my favorite design, but the nice thing about this sort of area is the designs don't need to be individual favorites in order to work. These designs can all be kind of mediocre according to me, but as long as they work together, I'm super happy, and well, I'm super happy with this one. Alright, so that's all fun and good, Kian, but what's next? Are you going to keep building this, or are you going to actually work on the focus of the episode for once? And my answer to that is I have no idea. We'll just have to wait and see. Alright, that's enough waiting. So that wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. There isn't really too much to say about it because it is pretty much the exact same method I used to construct that over there a couple episodes ago. I'll just summarize it again here. So basically I did the thing with sand, you saw it in the time lapse, and then I used a cylindrical brush with a stone mask to basically make the edges grass, and then kind of trimmed off things by hand. And then I went in here and used / fill with grass blocks again to fill the bottommost layer to make a base on which I can build the rest of the terrain. As you can see, I've kind of provided a barrier so I don't flood underneath here, because of course underneath here is where I keep all my rejects. You know, so I don't want to disrupt my rejects because maybe I'll use them again. I don't know. I have attachment issues. Anyways, I think that's about it for this segment. To the next segment. Oh, my character looks pretty surprised. Wonder what he could be surprised by. What the heck? It's finished? Ah, no way. That's crazy. How'd that happen? Yeah, no, it's not actually finished. There are still quite a lot of things to do, but I figured I would leave these areas blank because I want to put buildings there, and then I'll patch up the terraforming after the buildings are set in place. But for places like this, all the way over here, where I don't intend to put any buildings, I've well, completed it. Now, if you look closely, you might notice that I have this new puzzle coarse dirt gradient thing that hasn't really happened in the city before. And my idea behind it is to kind of use it to indicate more dense patches of trees in order to separate sort of the wilderness from the developed areas a little bit more. Because, of course, once you have enough trees, they block the sunlight and grass struggles to grow. And so I thought the gradient would help indicate that. And in kind of doing so, I've been able to, well, finish the top of this hill. So I haven't just worked on this terrain, I've also worked on this hill. It's been quite a long time. It's easy to underestimate the amount of time terraforming takes. But yeah, I've finished all the trees on that side over there, and I will show you in a second. I just want to bring to your attention the fact that I have finally consolidated my tree library, and in doing so, I built this nice tall spruce-looking tree, just to kind of contrast these little short spruce trees, because, of course, these trees are all about the same height from in their leaves, and so having a taller one will help things feel a little bit more dynamic. Anyways, here's my development that I was just talking about. I've tried to fill some of the open spaces with, well, trees that stand on their own, just to help it feel a little bit more full. And then, of course, over here is my dentist. Over here is my densest forest doing its job, which is, of course, blocking the light from that building going towards the observatory here. So the observatory gets minimal light pollution during the night, when, of course, it is active. The forest also extends right around here, too, and then up at the front, where I've kind of inserted my tall, pine-looking tree, as well as a bunch of smaller ones, just to densify it a little bit more, make it feel a little bit more like a wilderness. And then, of course, it also works to hide the water tanks from down here to make the area feel, again, a little bit more dynamic, right? You can't see all of it unless you walk around all of it, which is exactly the type of deal I want. Now, before we move on, I want to talk a little bit about something I noticed while flying along here, and that's how rough this terrain is compared to my new terrain over there. Now, the difference isn't super duper obvious, but if you had spend a lot of time with it like I do, it comes to be pretty loud. And yeah, that makes sense, because of course this especially this side right here, this was my first attempt at this kind of layer cake terrain that I've been doing for the city. And so it's understandable that it is, well, really rough. Now, I could go in and fix it, make it more modern, but to be honest, I don't want to. And that's simply because I really like the vision of progress that it presents. You know, that's the sort of deal with this whole city as well. Like, my first buildings are definitely a lot less conscientious of their environments, because of course the environments didn't exist when I started building them. And so it's a neat little, progress indication of where I came from and how I'm learning to develop the city. And I think it's really nice to preserve. So this is staying as its janky mess. All right, last thing, and then we're moving on, I promise. So I also built this house. I finished the... oh, I can't do this today. I finished this house. Oh, apparently I've been doing too much recording today. What I was saying is, as I finished this house, the style is pretty standard to the rest of them. However, of course, this balcony is quite a bit different, and I am rather proud of it. All right, now let's finish the hill. Alright, so things aren't great, but I'll get to what I mean by that in a second. First, I want to show you something that I do like. This tunnel. I really like this tunnel. It's cool. It's obviously not finished, and I'll get to that eventually, another episode probably, but the potential counts, and I love that. This whole hill area up here was kind of spontaneous, because I realized that this piece jutting out here was a little bit sharp compared to the rest of the hill. It looked a little bit out of place, and it needed, and I didn't want to reformat it, so I ended up rounding it out and just building a tunnel underneath. And it still makes sense, and that's great, and I love it. What I don't love is this. Now, in the time lapse, you probably saw me do a boo-boo and use the sphere brush in order to make this slope initially before I realized, oh wait, I can use a cylinder brush and it'll be way less messy. But, mess ensued nonetheless. You can tell it was done with a brush rather than done by hand. I mean, you look at it compared to the stuff I did by hand, it's quite obvious which is which. And that part of that is just because I rushed it. I mean, I did this whole thing, this and this, in 2.5 hours, which I guess is a lot of time, but it's about as much time as I have to offer, and apparently it's not enough. So, yeah, it's all right. But I think I'm going to sit on it and possibly redo it in the future. Now, before I end the episode, because it's right about that time, I want to talk briefly about this area here. You might have noticed in the time-lapse that there's the big X looking thing, although it's not much of an X. There, I fixed it. Okay. What it's meant to portray is my, dislike for this area. Well, not dislike. Okay, that's a strong word. Kian, you have to calm down. This area doesn't fit anymore, because my original image for it was that this was going to be sort of another type of balcony road thing like this is over here, but obviously that's not the case anymore. And so it's a bit redundant to have railings there, and by extension it's a bit redundant to have this thing kind of cordoned off unless I have buildings, planted right against the road, which I don't want to do. So, yeah, that's why the X is there, because I want to redo this park at some point. Not get rid of it per se. I do like its presence there, but I don't think it's adequate. Of course, you might be thinking back to my previous comment this episode of not removing or changing things that I've done previously. And yes, while it is true, the hill over there doesn't really interfere with any of the context or buildings in this area, or any buildings in that area for that matter. Whereas this will. If I keep it like this, it's going to look weird and out of place. So my idea is I'm going to preserve as much of this as possible, and then kind of expand on what I can in doing so, and hopefully make this whole place feel pretty homogeneous. That said, it is a future project that I'm not going to work on this episode, along with the tunnel and, of course, this slope. However, speaking of the slope, I don't actually think I'm going to do any more terraforming in episode, just because I think it's getting a little bit boring, and I don't want to bore people. And to be honest, it's kind of boring for myself too, just narrating over and over again, because there's only so much about this type of terraforming that I can talk about. It's not exactly super advanced. And so I think it would be more fun if I just do it in the background and periodically update you with the changes I make. So yeah. Anyways, I think that's it for this episode. I'm sorry to kind of end on a bit of a downer, but that happens, and to be honest, I've been working on it for way too long. I don't really want to drag it out any longer. I don't think that's going to help. I like to keep my episodes under 20 minutes if possible, and so far I've been successful, so hopefully we'll be able to this time as well. So, thank you very much for watching. Leave a comment if you feel like it, if you have anything to say. I love reading comments, and have a nice day.